Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Endurance School. We are super excited to be joined here at Detention tonight by Joe Gambles. If you have not yet met Joe, he is a professional triathlete, coach, and family man. He pretty much owns the Boulder 70.3 course, having won there 5 times. He is the 2010 Ironman Wisconsin champion, and he's been on a world championship podium twice at 70.3 Worlds in 2013 and at ITU Long Distance World Champs in 2017. His results are a parade of podium finishes as one of the most consistent athletes on the professional circuit in the last decade and a half.
Joe is obviously a lot more than his results, however. He is a lifelong vegetarian become vegan. And is one of the only truly 100% plant-powered athletes in the world. He is a great coach, having led Heather Jackson to several top 5 Kona finishes, and he works with athletes of all stripes to optimize their training and racing. He became a dad the past few seasons as well, learning to juggle family, coaching, and racing at an extremely high level. Joe Gambles, welcome to Detention.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, nice to join you, and good to see you both.
It is awesome to have you here. It's been way too long seeing you in the flesh.
Absolutely.
This will have to do.
Yeah, I agree. No, it's been way too long. And yeah, hopefully we'll get back to some sort of racing this year. Obviously, there's been a few races already this year. I haven't been on those start lines, but I'm doing St. George in 3 weeks. I hope to catch up with a bunch of people there, which will be nice.
Oh, it's nice. So exciting.
We're going to, Joe has a challenge that he is going to put out there in just a few minutes about the St. George field. But before we get there, do they have detention in Tasmania where you grew up? Was that a thing?
It is, yeah. I don't think I've ever been in detention. I was a very studious, well-behaved, student, for sure. But yeah, no, we do have detention, for sure. So I don't know if we do it after school. I think it's more lunchtime detention.
And did you end up there?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Did you end up in detention?
No, I don't think that I ever did.
Never.
I went into the principal's office once, but that's about it. But never. I was a pain at home, I'm sure, but at school I did the right thing, especially in high school. I was fairly studious and obsessed with sport as well, so I didn't have time to be naughty and get into trouble.
I don't know why, but I'm surprised.
Really?
Yeah, me too.
Well, maybe this phase is still to come. I'll rebel in my 40s. I'll hit 40 and that's it. I'll just go,
Here's hoping.
Yeah, my wife she actually thinks that I'm going to retire from this sport and I'm going to try and relive my youth. But, yeah.
Instant midlife crisis as soon as you retire.
Yeah, I don't know about that. No, I don't think so. But yeah, I definitely didn't party and as much as most high school, college kids, that's for sure. I was a pretty dedicated athlete.
Got it. Can you remember what you got sent to the principal's office for?
Oh, that was it was in grade 2. I think because I was running in the classroom, but one of the really naughty kids was chasing me with a pair of scissors. But I got in trouble for running in the classroom.
Classic.
I think that's why I went to I think I got in trouble for that. So.
And what did you learn?
I didn't learn anything. Nothing at all. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Back then, the teachers were still allowed to spank students. So in Australia, back in the 80s. So yeah, things have changed.
So
in so many ways.
Speaking of your wild and rebellious life, we have to warn everyone that in just 11 minutes now, maybe less.
No, I think I'll be less. I put a timer on.
Yep.
It. 6.5 actually.
We are going to have 6.5 minutes. We are going to have a tour of Joe Gamble's kitchen while he removes his sourdough loaf from the oven. So brace yourself, everybody. This is very exciting.
Yeah, I didn't time this very well, obviously.
No, we're excited to get to see it.
Give you an insight into my life and what I've been doing in the last year is I've tried to learn a new skill, and that, like everyone else, is sourdough bread. So you can have a look.
Tell us more about that. What has this year made room for you that you wouldn't have had time for otherwise?
Well, the best thing that's come out of this is I got to spend a whole year pretty much taking care of my son. So he's just turned 4, we pulled him out of school this time last year, preschool, and just financially it didn't make sense that I wasn't going to be racing, and I got a year to hang out with him, like teach him to ride a strider bike, and we had so many adventures, and had a great time. So, but he's going to go back into school in the fall, so because I think he's had enough of his dad and he wants to go play with his friends now. But that was really the best thing that came out of COVID for me, and that I've got pretty good at making bread. So everyone in the family is pretty happy about that. So that's about it. That's all I've pretty much done.
We've got a couple questions in chat right off the bat. One of them sort of speaks to what you're just talking about, and the first one is how do you manage your family life and training and racing?
Yeah, well, my son's just turned 4, so it was fine initially. I think for the first couple of years, my wife did the majority of the work. I was still really focused on Ironman, but the last 2, it's my training volume's been cut a lot. Before we jumped on air, I was saying I'm basically doing about 15 hours a week of training, which is not a lot for a professional athlete. And I'm trying to figure out if I can get that down to 12 and still be competitive, but that might be stretching it a little bit. But yeah, I got to the point now where I just make the key sessions the priority, and all the other stuff, if I don't feel like doing it, then I don't. Like today, I had a easy ride planned and some gym work, and I just didn't feel like doing it, so I didn't do it. But I know tomorrow there's like maybe 6 sessions during the week that I have to commit to, and I go into that and give it everything. So yeah, it's just really, I guess the whole buzzword right now is polarized training, and when I do something hard, I do it with everything I've got, and then the other side, I really take it easy, recovery or complete recovery rides, jogs, or complete rest. I can probably maybe get away with that because I've been doing the sport so long. I think someone that was maybe that's in their 20s needs to develop this big engine and aerobic base and strength that just lots of years of training is needed to get to that point. But I'm just relying on years of endurance training, and I've been doing this sport since I was 12. I'm 39 now, and I did my first pro race when I was 16. So there's a lot of background there, and so I don't know how long my base is probably wearing out right now, but we'll see. It's what I can manage and what I can manage around my family and my coaching, and so it's just finding a balance right now for sure. Yeah.
Another question.
We love hearing that about. I mean, I feel like you see a lot of athletes that like try to jump in and just go on like a minimalist training plan with like a lot of high intensity and without that base behind it. Like, what would you tell an athlete that was doing that, and so you'd like to make an adjustment to make it more effective?
Yeah, obviously, the intensity is important, but you do have to balance that with the endurance. And our sport is predominantly an endurance sport, so there's no shortcutting those long. If you're thinking about Ironman, you've got to get out on your bike and ride 4 to 5 hours consistently. You've got to build up in a smart way to be able to handle running for up to 3 hours longer, obviously, with some athletes. So there's ways you can do that without just actually covering 26 miles. You need to get in the gym and do your strength work and things like that. But with that development phase, which takes years, there's no real shortcuts. You've got it, and you do it because you love it. Like if you're coming into sport and want to do shortcuts, then it's maybe not for you. I would train more if I could, but I just know that I won't be a great husband and great father, and that's not a sacrifice I'm prepared to make. So I try and get away with 15 hours a week, and you can see how I go at St. George in a little under 3 weeks, and you'd be like, you probably should have done more than 15. And I'm gonna go get that sourdough out. Who wants to come see my kitchen?
Yeah,
All right.
We're in. Take us with you.
Just remind me, I've got to put my kitchen mitts on.
Okay. It's very hot, that cast iron pot.
475.
Oh,
So.
boy. Oh,
All right, you're going to see it here, folks. You're going to see Joe Gambles get burned on Twitch.
Don't joke about that. I actually did that once. I
Live
picked up a cast iron. I picked it up once and burnt my hand. So, okay.
No. This is a lot more
nice.
action than we usually see on.
Oh, good. He's got the oven mitts. Nice work.
Okay, good.
That left-handed oven mitt is like a shearling oven mitt or something.
Yeah, it looks comfortable on the inside.
No. Oh, this looks good.
Oh my God. Oh, it looks so light and fluffy.
Oh, wow. This is great. We're commenting. Yeah. Bread baking commentary.
What?
Brought to you. Whoa.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Those are gorgeous. Those are beautiful.
Yeah.
Joe.
There you go. That was the highlight of the interview. Okay.
Will you send us a recipe that we can post on Discord?
Absolutely. Well, I could just. It's basically just need to get this book.
Okay. Okay, I'm in.
Or this one.
Yes, I love that book. That book is fantastic.
Oh, nice. Yes.
You've been given a 10 out of 10 by chat.
Well, it's more about the taste. I'm not. Yeah, presentation maybe is lacking, but.
Oh gosh, those both look beautiful.
Well, they disappear very quickly in this house.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Definitely not a gluten-free household.
Enid would like to know where you got your starter.
That's a really good question. My mother-in-law actually started that sourdough starter when my sister-in-law was born, and she's 46.
Wow.
So 46 years old.
Whoa.
That was actually a really good question. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So she brought some. She's from the East Coast, and she brought some over like 3 or 4 years ago, and I've been feeding it. Oh, I let it die, and then I revived it, and then I got sourdough making a year ago.
Now it's zombie.
And brought it back to life, and
it's awesome.
Yeah, so it's 46 years old.
How do you bring it back to life?
Spells.
It's pretty resilient.
Yeah, magical
just
spells.
feed it and water it and let it react with the air, and
that is awesome.
Pretty crazy.
Joe Gambles, baker of zombie bread.
That's right. You heard it here first.
The undead baker. I love it.
Absolutely. I've honestly thought about maybe I should open a bakery. It's really fulfilling. It's a great balance. It's a good for the mind.
Mm-hmm. I think you'd have a good
very early hours.
Yeah, I'd struggle with that.
Yes.
Yeah. How are you with the 3 a.m. wake up?
I just couldn't go to bed. I just stay.
Oh, nope.
Shortest lived bakery in history.
Don't play that
game. Yeah, maybe I'll just stick to my 2 loaves a week sort of ritual.
Nice.
I like it. So we had one other question from chat from JJDub, who I am trying to make sure I remember all of my Twitch handles, but I think this is Jason from Fuck Cancer. Is that right?
Yeah.
Hi,
exactly.
Jason. So he says that he has crashed in a race before and was wondering how you were able to get back on the horse both mentally and physically.
That's a good question. I'm not sure if you asked that question because I think the last race we were at together, I crashed pretty badly at Indian Wells 70.3 at the end of 2000 and what's that? What year is it? 2019? Yeah. So that was one of my last races. And yeah, I've got some decent scars to show, but yeah, it definitely shook me up for a while. I think the best thing I did was put away the time trial bike for a while and got out the gravel bike, which gives you on 38 mil tires and 35 psi. You can feel the ground. You have a lot more confidence, and it's going to grip. And I started riding, only dirt or the trainer through the Colorado winter that year. So, and I think that I actually developed some good skills on the gravel bike for me because I don't have good technical skills when it comes to the mountain biking or anything like that. But it sort of helped me forget about. I had the time trial bike on the trainer and I rode my gravel bike everywhere else. And then by the time spring came around again, I had actually completely forgotten that I'd crashed at 30 miles an hour and completely messed myself up. So that was, I think, go back to basics and get on a bike that you're really comfortable on. And time trial bikes are not great for handling, so they are easy to crash. And I think going on a bike that you feel really well balanced on and comfortable, and getting that confidence back in that and being relaxed on the bike first, and then and then you can cross those skills back over to the race bike when you feel really happy. Yeah, don't know if that helps.
Totally. No, thank you for that. So kind of shifting gears to both St. George 70.3, we're going to make such a segue here, and vegetarianism and veganism.
Okay.
You have a challenge for the pro field at St. George that we are going to make live here tonight. So Joe, what's your challenge?
I was on my long run yesterday, and I was just thinking about St. George, and I just sort of looked at the entry list, and I realized I think I'm the oldest person in the race at 39. I'm like, when did that happen? And I know I get a little bit of grief about being vegan, plant-based, whichever you want to call it. And if you ate some red meat, you'd go so much faster. Anyway, I was thinking, because there's so many young, up-and-coming, very confident athletes out there that I would really like to beat before I don't race anymore, that I was going to put the challenge out. If I beat you at St. George, any of the pros, then they have to do my 1 week vegan challenge. So, and I would help by, during that week, I'd do 1 post per day on Instagram about, okay, we'll do this vegan meal, we'll do this for dinner, and this lunch, this breakfast, and I'm going to put that out there probably in the next week when the start list actually gets released, and I'm going to tag every single pro in there, pro male. And if I beat you, then you have to go vegan. And the thing is, they're going to be thanking me because they'll recover a lot faster if they're not eating dairy and red meat after a race. It's the biggest thing I found once I cut out dairy 3 years ago was the inflammation. I should never have drunk milk ever. Like, and I grew up drinking like a liter a day in Australia. That was what it was, and cheese, and it just, I cut it out for 3-4 weeks, and I was like, I feel completely different. I just recovered. I didn't get sore anymore. My stomach was really happy. Like I could just seem to have digest food so much easier. So anyway, so they will thank, if I do beat you, then you will thank me. But then I will also be able to give you as much as I want.
I love this challenge. So along those lines, I think there are a lot of misunderstandings in the endurance community about plant-based diets. If you could correct an assumption that you feel like a lot of athletes are holding, what would that be?
I guess athletes that these days are pretty informed, and they don't ask me the question I've been asked for years is, where do you get your protein from? Mm-hmm. Because there are so many great products out there, and the only thing that you have to be aware of if you do go plant-based is you need to put more thought into your preparation meals. Okay, where's my protein source? If I combine these two together, then I'm going to get a complete protein. I'm still going to get my 20 grams of protein, which is probably the most you can absorb in one sitting. I think that's the main thing, is where do you get your protein from? And with a shameless plug for my sponsor, but Vega, who I've been sponsored by for a couple of years, do a great job of making a really great tasting and complete protein that's really easy to have, just mixed with water and away you go. So that makes it really easy. And I do lean on that a little bit now because I'm pretty busy with coaching and training fatherhood, and I do rely on just a protein shake a couple times a day, or a protein bar and stuff, to get the additional protein I need when I'm training hard. But throughout the day, it's pretty easy. Maybe it's easy. Like on my website, I've got a bunch of good recipes, but it's once you break it down, you throw chickpeas in a salad, you do veggie burgers with beans and grind up nuts and rice, and also beans and rice are the most simple complete protein. Like you combine those together, it's complete protein. So that's a really easy one for a lot of people to just start with, because most people like Mexican food, so they're already well on their way.
So I know that a lot of folks really struggle with the protein for recovery. Before you had such a busy schedule, what was your favorite recovery meal?
Um, Recovery like during the day, like
For
during
like
the
right
day.
after a workout, yeah.
Um, Before I used recovery drinks, that's a good question. I think, well, before I became vegan, I used to rely on eggs a
Okay.
lot. Uh, that would probably be the main thing that I'd use, but that's not an option for me anymore. So yeah, I'm trying to think back. It seems like a long time ago that I actually did rely on things. Yeah. But yeah, I guess I've always used recovery drinks, even plant-based, because I knew I felt better on them
Mm-hmm.
as my recovery drink, and then I just eat a well-rounded meal afterwards. But I've always been pretty aware that you need to try and get the protein in, some carbohydrate after a hard session. Um, yeah, it's funny. It's just become so routine now that I don't even think about it. And look, I get my iron levels checked. My hematocrit is like 47. Like I'm definitely, my hemoglobin's 16, and it's like, and I check these and I get drug tested and I look at those results, and I go, and yeah, there's no question in my mind that I'm not putting myself at a disadvantage at all. In fact, I think my recovery rate is better than anyone's I know from not eating any dairy or red meat or white meat.
Have you always had such a close handle on your blood numbers, or is that something that you have done more
Um,
of through the years?
yeah, I've definitely kept an eye on it. It's easy when you're on whereabouts for drug testing, because they test those and you can sort of see that. Um, but no, yeah, I guess I've always been aware, because I've always been a vegetarian. So I think in my teenage years I was just mainly a runner before I moved to triathlon, and I used to get it checked, like when I used to go to the doctor, and they always were never low, but they were on the low end. And doctors in the 1990s were like, "Oh, what you need to do is go and eat some of this red meat stuff. Have you heard of it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'm not going to." But then I go and see that same doctor when I'm home in Australia, at like now, and he's like, "Oh, you're still vegetarian?" I'm like, "Well, I'm actually vegan now." And then he looks at my blood numbers and he's like amazed. And yeah, so he's got nothing to say anymore, which is nice.
Well, and that would have been a really hard ask for you even then, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you have never ever eaten a piece of meat ever, if that's
Ever,
correct. Yeah.
ever. Yeah, I was raised. My parents were vegetarian. My grandparents, my extended family. 80% of my extended family are vegetarian.
Amazing.
My mum and me are the only vegans, I think. Dad said he was going to try a few months ago, but he loves his cups of tea with milk in them, so, and he couldn't find a good substitute, so I think he's already cracked.
Huh.
But yeah.
So then,
Did you have to make? Sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say that this is probably a better question for you as a coach than as an athlete, because you've never made that transition from like to plant based. But we have a couple people who've said they're really interested in trying your challenge. What advice would you give to athletes who are thinking about becoming plant based?
Switching over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people are surprised when I give this response. Is I actually pick 2 days a week that you make those plant-based days and see how you go. Because I think a lot of people, they'll go and watch a documentary about how awful animals are treated, and they go, right, I'm going vegan tomorrow. And they last about a week, and then they run out of ideas of how to keep going with it. And maybe they feel better, but they're like, oh, what do we make for dinner now? But if you pick, if like 2 days a week, that you're like, okay, we're gonna find two meals that we can prepare easily and we like them and they're well balanced, and we're gonna do that for 6 weeks. And then that going well, maybe we'll add a third day, and then a fourth day, and then it's just a gradual progression as you're building up a repertoire of recipes. And because if you just throw yourself in the deep end and just go, right, I'm going plant-based, you'll quickly run out of ideas of what things to make, and then you'll just throw in the towel, and you haven't really, and then you'll be like, I sort of quit pretty quickly on that. But give yourself a chance and just do it 1-2 times a week. Like, if you don't, like, it's not an animal rights thing or a health thing, it's an environmental, like, that was my biggest driving factor for cutting out dairy, was environmental. So there's many reasons to cut out even 1 day a week eating red meat. And climate change is a huge problem. So, and the emissions from the meat industry are like the worst, one of the worst causes of the pollution in the air. So from the emissions from the animals. So there's lots of good reasons to give it a go. Even if it's 1 or 2 days a week, it will make a difference to your health and to the environment.
When you switched from being a vegetarian to a total vegan, were there any like growing pains? Were there any additional adjustments that were difficult? Tell us a little bit about that transition.
Initially, I've been a strict vegan for 3.5 years now, but I actually did it 6 months earlier, but I just struggled with getting enough calories in because I was relying on eggs and cheese and yogurt, which, yes, they have protein and fat, but they're quite high in calories. And I just didn't find the substitute to bring enough calories in for how much training I was doing. I was getting ready for an Ironman, and I was training 20-25 hours a week at that point. And I just actually dropped weight, and I just didn't have the energy. So I saw that, hang on, okay. I sort of did what I just said not to do and just jumped in thinking, and I did feel great, but I just didn't think it through and go, okay, what am I going to replace with those 2 eggs that I have at lunchtime? What am I going to replace with the cheese that I put on top of whatever, the pasta or whatever I'm eating? I don't know. So that was the only issue. And then when I came back to it and did a lot more research and spoke to some people that had successfully done it, I just made a few changes, and I was, haven't looked back.
What are some of those
can you
favorite
tell us?
add-ons?
Yeah.
What's that?
What are some of those favorite changes? Like, what are some of the things that you've substituted that you really enjoy?
The biggest hurdle for a lot of people going from vegetarianism to veganism is cheese. People love cheese. It's addictive. I can go into, there's many reasons why. It's not particularly good for you, but it is addictive. But I found cashew is an amazing substitute for cheese. So, like, my wife's the one that came up with this. I don't know if she read it somewhere, but you soak like a cupful of cashews in boiling water for an hour, drain them, put them in a high-speed blender of Vitamix with olive oil, salt and pepper. Unbelievable. So you can use that instead of a ricotta in lasagna. You can use that. You can do it. For my son, we will mix that with cheese and make macaroni and cheese, and he absolutely loves that. So that it's a really good substitute. We put it on top of like a mushroom pizza. Like, a vegan pizza is tough, but if you do like a mushroom pizza with dollops of like cashew cream on it, and I make the dough, and we do it it's like things like that. That's the same, because I missed those things initially. I was like, how am I gonna eat that sort of stuff? And feta, I do an almond feta where you basically do the same as the cashews. You soak them in hot water for an hour, drain them, put them through a cheesecloth, and then blend it up with like oil, salt, pepper, maybe some herbs. So talking American then. And then you bake that in the oven, and it comes out like a feta, and then you can put that in sandwiches with things like that. So that was some of the best things that my wife, she found, and I eat. But I make them, but she's definitely the one that finds substitutions for me and does a great job with that. So, and as I said, that they're on my website. I didn't put them there. My wife put them there. But there's definitely some good recipes that I've talked about that you can check out.
This is a very food-based crew. I think that's very likely to happen.
Good.
Yeah, there's a call for a Joe Gambles cookbook in chat.
That's my wife's dream. That's honest.
I can see
She
it.
really would love to do that. I don't know where would find the time, but uh, yeah. I sort of tried to sell Vega on that idea because obviously I don't know if people know much about Vega, but they were founded by a guy called Brendan Brazier, who, and this is actually a great resource, and this is how I started going to plant-based. He's got a book called The Thrive Diet, and it's you can buy it for like $12 on Amazon. It's the first half of the book is basically his whole thinking of how to eat and why you don't want to put meat in your body, and in terms of the energy cost, and then the second half is all his recipes. Anyway, he started Vega and he started back. He went to Kona and was like had his own little stall and was like selling samples of his like I think energy bars at that point, which were like dates and all strange things. And then now, well, Vega's like the biggest plant-based recovery company in the world. They're owned by a huge multi-corporate corporation now. So yeah, that's a great book, The Thrive Diet. Something like that would be cool one day. So maybe I could write it with him. Maybe something like that would be cool. But I think that would have to be after racing. There's enough on my plate right now with coaching and training and everything else. So yeah.
There's your midlife crisis, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, write a book.
Write a cookbook. I mean, like you've never been to detention. You're cooking sourdough. I think a midlife crisis cookbook. That sounds like your speed.
I don't know. It's already been done. So many people have brought out cookbooks, like especially during COVID. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I saw Emma Coburn brought out a book, I think, in the last few months as well. And, yeah.
So
I need something else.
I'm curious about something you said earlier on about having been in the sport since you were 16 years old, which is a couple of years now. So as somebody who has been in the sport for an extended period of time, what has changed about it in that time? What have you noticed from your 16-year-old debut to your towing the line at St. George?
Yeah, well, I did my first one when I was 12, and then I got my first pro wild card when I was 16.
Wow.
And that race was pretty amazing. If I go back and look at who was in that race, it was like from Craig Alexander to Chris McCormack to Miles Stewart to Courtney Atkinson. I don't know if you'd like a lot. I'm not sure how closely you follow sport.
Miles Stewart.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the who's who. I think Greg Welsh was probably in that race as well. Like, and then I went back to racing age group for a few years because I think I was 10 minutes back in Olympic distance. But the sport, it's become, well, I say that you can't have a weakness, but then you look at the guys from the weekend, and Sam Long was 3 minutes 10 back, and Lionel had a great swim, was 140 back. Yeah, if you have a weakness, you have to have an amazing strength, and those guys obviously showed that. But then you put them against like a Gustav Eden or Alistair Brownlee, Vincent Louis over that distance. It'd be really interesting to see what would happen, because the swim's that much faster, and even at 12 meters, there's still an advantage of being, even a mental advantage of being in the front pack, so to speak. So it's definitely shifting more towards, like, especially half Ironman, those shorter course guys, they're stepping up seamlessly. I'm glad the Olympics, maybe we'll keep them out for one more year, because they always, next year is going to be like, okay, I'm out. Like, it's just going to be crazy.
Time for the
like
bakery.
Go up again. But then people like Jan just keeps reinventing himself, and he's still the gold standard. Like, no one can touch him. Like, I would absolutely say that he would have won at Daytona. Like, he's just a class act. He doesn't have a weakness. And so it's, Gustav was out the water, I think, a minute 30 down. If Jan was in that front pack at Daytona, Gustav would have never ridden back. And Jan, if Jan's got 10 seconds on Gustav, 15 seconds, you're not running Jan down. So it's great to see a guy who's 40 now still able to just hand it to these guys. And like guys like Kinlay and stuff, there's like Tim O'Donnell, like they're all 37 to 41 years old, these guys. And look, there's some great guys coming through, but these older guys are reinventing themselves and still able to hand it out when they have to.
Yeah. That kind of goes to the next question that I've got for you. That's, I mean, as we said in our introduction, you have been incredibly consistent with your results. Like as we were going through your results for the introduction, it's like second, third, a win. So you're just always like in the hunt for the front of the race. That kind of consistency is really, really hard to come by. What would you attribute your consistency to?
My bike. Even when I wasn't a good swimmer, I learned how to ride really, really hard, especially in that first 30 minutes. And I think I've lost that a little bit, and I blame Ironman training for that. It's sort of, there's not many athletes that can do both really well. Like there's a handful, like in the men's, Jan, Sebi. There's only a few that can actually handle both, and I don't know how they do it. It's really amazing. You sort of really have to specialize now. And when I tried to push through Ironman, I definitely lost that ability to red line it for the first 30, 40 minutes. Even if I was down under the water, I'd bridge up. I had no like problem. I always thought I'll get back to the front of the race. Now, Rudy von Berg is very good at this now. He may be a fraction off the swim sometimes, but he's back in the race within like 10 miles. And that set yourself up. And then once you get to the front, you've got to get to the front of the race. For anyone that wants to make it as pro, you've got to see the front of the race, because it changes the whole way you race. And then then you're in the mix. But when you're chasing all day, it's like full credit to people like Lionel and Sam Long that have that ability to get back to the front. But it's no fun. Like never seeing the front of the race. And when you get a taste of it, you just know, like even if it hurts even more the next time, you've got to get back there, because you know once you're there, it's something switches in your brain, and the whole way you look at it, and you're like, okay, I'm in this. But if you're just chasing all day and you never see the front, like that's why, like Matt Hansen, unbelievable. Generally never sees the front of a race until the run, but he will fight to the death, even if he's like at Miami, had not a good bike ride for him, but he still went and ran equal fastest run, and he had nothing to run for. Like 9 out of 10 would have just pulled the pin that day, but not him. So full credit to those guys. But yeah.
What kind of training, and like, because you're a coach now, so like what sort of physiology do you need to have in place to be able to do that kind of ride hard at the beginning of a bike, and then, not completely come to bits?
Big engine, big VO2. Like that. Well, yeah, it's changing on time now. You have to have like a big engine, but you also need to be in a fantastic aerodynamic position. You have to be on the best equipment. Like I look back at some of my bike positions and the equipment I was on back, even like 2009, 2010, 11, I was on fast bikes, but my position was awful, but I could put out good power. Now you've got to tick all the boxes, but that ability to clear lactate is really, really important. So, and you just got to train it. Like I look at some of the guys now racing that do all the right stuff in training, but they've never been in a bike race in their life. And I'm like, that's the missing piece. I raced bikes from when I was 13 years old. And it's that ability to go and just hang onto the wheel. And I feel like that then crossed over to being able to time trial like that for the first 30 minutes. So I think guys should bike race. Like, even like, I don't want to name names, but there's guys that they can hold good power consistently but they lose the race in the first 30 minutes of the bike because the pace is too hot. They need to be able to push. They can push 300 all day, but they need to be able to push 330 for 15, 20 minutes, and then the rubber band breaks, and that's it, game over. They're still time trailing at 300, and mentally they're out of the game. So having that ability to really go above your threshold, knowing that it's really going to hurt, but you're going to be fine. You just need 10 to 30 seconds of to sort of get the heart rate back down to clear some lactate, and then you're fine again. But it's brutal. It's fun. Like, it's testing yourself to the absolute limit. I'm working with Rachel Olsen right now, and trying to teach her to be able to go to that point where you're just focusing on that first 20 minutes of the bike, and just pretend that's all you're doing. But the mind wanders and you start thinking, oh, I've actually got a time trial for 56 miles. I can't hold this. Yeah, no, you can't. No one can. But it's, if you want to be in the race and you want to be at the front of the race, you need to be able to do that. So, yeah. And this is like short course guys, it comes naturally too. They're used to pushing out 350 watts for the first 10 minutes, whatever, with surges at 500. It's nothing. So, yeah.
So similar question, but for you, like Chris mentioned, you're often a podium contender, but at Boulder you have like a lock on the top step. What do you think? What do you think is unique about your physiology or your approach to racing that makes that such an ideal course for you?
Well, I train on those roads every day, but yeah, the altitude's never really affected me that much. I can pretty much put out the same power at altitude as I can at sea level. There's a way to race Boulder, especially the old Boulder course, that the first 25 minutes were generally uphill and pretty hard. And people were always cautious, especially people that weren't used to altitude would always be cautious. And I would just go as hard as possible. I'd pretend, as I just said, it was a 20, 25 minute all out effort. And I'd just break them mentally. and that was it. They'd give up and they'd go, oh, Joe's won this before, and I'd be away. Even though they could beat me. And maybe I'll go back and race this year and I'll get absolutely killed. But put people, I was calling the shots. I'd put people in a position where they're like, I can't do this. And I've had that inflicted on me many times. Like, that's what Kinley is famous for, is if it's hurting me, it's killing them. Like, he knows that he can't sustain that power, but he's just planting that seed of doubt in his opposition. And yeah, more often than not, they're like, okay, you have it, second's fine with me. So, and Boulder's it's a fast course, but there's a way to ride it. It's very over under. There's lots of like minute where you're pushing 350 watts, but then you're doing 40 miles an hour pushing 250. So if you can go over and under and recover quickly, you do well on that course. Pushing 300 watts consistently up, down hills is not going to get you to ride that course fast. You need to be able to work with the terrain. So, I don't want to give away my secret, so I won't even make top 10 this year if I race. So.
Yeah, everybody's just going to be waiting, like, all right, he just said 25 to 30 minutes of hell. That's it.
I think I'd have a bit of a hard time against someone like Rudy Von Berg and even Chris Leiferman now. He's won that race a couple of times as well. So, yeah.
What's been your biggest challenge in your career of getting better?
When I hit 30, and I was warned of this, of injuries. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't, do much at all apart from train hard, and I'd recover. But you hit 30 and something happens. I had my first injury, leading in 2010. So I was actually 28 when I had my first injury. But yeah, that late 20s, I just started getting Achilles problems, and you'd run through it, and then you had some sort of compensation pattern. So managing that stuff was hard. And I've come back from a few different injuries now and come back better. and I've had a great team around me. So like the Lawrence Van Lingen, who's in California, he works with a lot of athletes in Boulder. He's saved my career once, and then Jay Deshary from Bend, Oregon. I went to see him when I was completely like, okay, I'm done. And I was back running within 4 weeks, and then that's the year I got third at St. George. So yeah, like I've been fortunate to have some really knowledgeable people that I've been able to lean on. But yeah, you can come back stronger, because then it makes you, if after an injury you have to reassess why, and those things can actually make you a lot better athlete. And that's the thing with triathlon, there's so many things you can keep improving on. Like even someone who's like Jan, he's still going, oh, I want to get better at this, I want to get better at that. And that's why it's hard to walk away from it, because you're like, oh, maybe if I did that. And I play that game with myself all the time. Like, okay, if I, sort of work on my top end run speed, then everything might fall back into place, and I might start running 1:12s again. But that's the challenge of it, and that's why people love it, because you can always improve. Yeah.
I think a lot of folks, at least who are part of our community, have seen some improvements through a platform that you are very familiar with, the Sufferfest.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing with the Sufferfest, and kind of what role you feel like it can play in training?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so Wahoo Fitness created this category of their company called Wahoo Sports Science, which then acquired Sufferfest, which has been a long-standing online program that it's like an app, like sort of like Zwift, but it's personalized. It's all these different sessions. They're generally like an hour-long bike sessions, and they're absolutely brutal. And the connection I had with it was my former coach, Neal Henderson, who coached me from 2013 through 2017, I think, something like that. He wrote the majority of those programs. And that was when I was riding my best. So when COVID hit last year, I was like, okay, well, I've got my personal clients, but maybe I can fit in a little bit more coaching, because I'd like to broaden my knowledge and do and have a bit more exposure to different types of athletes that I can work with. So I became one of the Wahoo Sports Science coaches, and basically program writing utilizing the Sufferfest platform. It's amazing. It's very high intensity. The sessions, they're very short. They're definitely geared to people that have like a real job, and maybe they can fit in like a 45-minute hour workout in the morning or at lunchtime or at night. And then the weekends, like maybe they can get out and ride for 2-3 hours. So it's funny. I've been following one of the programs to get ready for St. George, because that works with my lifestyle right now. My wife works during the week. I look after my son. I can train before and after she works, and then I get the weekends to like ride more than an hour. But it is actually really effective, because the first thing you do with the program is they put you through, it's called 4DP, which is 4-dimensional power. And this is the power profile test I used to do with Neal, and it's absolutely horrendous, but it gives you 4 different data points of your like peak power, your threshold power, your anaerobic capacity number, what you can hold for a minute basically, and your MAP or your VO2 number. And from that, all the workouts are geared around those numbers, and then you retest after 6 weeks with it's called the half Monty, which is like a ramp test. And then if you've improved, they up your numbers, and then you're constantly reevaluating, which I think a lot of people go, oh yeah, I did a threshold test once and just use that number, but it does change a lot, and that was just one day. So they're miserable, these tests, but if you're time crunched, you sort of want to make sure you're training in the right zones. Like if you're Sam Long, have got all the hours in the week to train, then you can get away with maybe not knowing exactly where your numbers are. Like if you're riding 20 hours a week, but if you can only ride 6, you sort of want to make the sessions count, and that's what they do really well. And I think one of the things I hear from clients is that maybe moved away from Zwift to Sufferfest is people get tired of getting passed on Zwift because they're out doing their own ride and someone, they just keep getting passed and passed. And after a while, if that's all you're using to ride your bike, it's a little bit demoralizing. So a lot of people have a Zwift account and a Sufferfest account, and they do their workouts on the Sufferfest and then maybe a longer ride, a group ride, a social thing on Zwift. So it's crazy, like how this is. Well, COVID's obviously ramped it up a lot, but that people love this stuff. Like they love the interaction on an online platform. It's and I can see the appeal for sure. It is very time efficient. Yeah.
You should come and join. You should guest ride one of our Sufferfest sessions Tuesday mornings.
Okay.
We had HJ joined us for a broadcast of Angels.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Just this morning, I DNF'd the Wretched.
I don't think I've actually done that one. It's one of the ones I haven't done yet.
It's so hard.
Some of them, like some of them are like people just can't complete. Like but it shows you where your weaknesses are.
Yeah.
Like Team Scream is like basically 57 minutes of hell, but if your numbers aren't right for that, you're not going to finish it. Or you're having an off day. So it is a really good test, but you've got to balance these high intensity work and a lot with some really chilled. And the good thing about Sufferfest, they offer like yoga and some strength work, which is more like mobilization activation. And this yoga and breathing sessions, because you need to come down, because some of these sessions are so high intense that you need to actually chill out. Because you do one of these sessions and you come up in the basement and start to try and talk to your wife or your husband after you've done it, you're on this level and they're like, what? What's wrong with you? Because it's just, you have to put that much focus into it. But look, you get your bang for your buck. It's
so hard.
It is really hard, but it's
what words of encouragement do you have for? So Molly and I have done the 4DP test a bunch of times last year because we were just using it. But a lot of our athletes would be like, "This is really hard." What are some of the coaching cues that you use to talk people through? Like when they're like, "Wait, so I'm going to sprint and then a 5-minute all-out effort and then a 20-minute test." And then a 1-minute test? Like, what do you use to help them?
You just focus on what's in front of you. Just focus on the sprint. Like, you can't be like in the 5-minute thinking, oh, I've got the 20-minute and the 1. You've got to really focus on each particular part. And they do a really good job in prompting you during the thing. Like, they tell you to not actually go all out on the 5-minute until about the 2 or 3-minute mark, because they want you to pace it. They want an accurate number. They don't want you to actually stop pedaling 3 minutes into a 5-minute test, because some people don't have the experience maybe that you have, or like they may be new to it, so they don't get it. So I just use it. It's a starting point, and you get better. The more you do the test, the more you get better at it, and you get more accurate information. One thing I did, which I should know by now, I tested on my road bike like August last year when racing was starting to happen, and I then used those numbers. That's a terrible idea, because I was never because then on a time trial bike, I'm about 5 to 8% lower in aero than I can hold on a road bike. So the best thing to do is test it in the position that you want to be able to hold. So, and the numbers aren't going to look very good on a time trial bike, but that's okay. They're the numbers that you need to work on to get better at time trialing. So if you're a road rider, do it on your road bike. If you're a gravel rider, do it on your gravel bike. But it does make a difference. You want to set yourself up to win, because if those numbers are not right on the Sufferfest, it's absolutely miserable. You better be slightly low then high on those numbers for sure. Yeah.
I keep asking Molly to bring my FTP down.
Nope, won't do it.
Come on.
I'm not going to do
Come on.
it.
375, not
Nope.
380. Come
Nope.
on.
3, that's a lot of power,
I'm
Bag.
a big guy, Joe. I could, yeah. I think I've
3,
got like,
that's long numbers.
no, it's not. He's up above 400 these days.
Yeah.
It's bananas. It's a different world.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
I don't know. But then, like, people, I love people throw numbers around all the time. And I still come back to, like, Sam Appleton, who I see a lot and train with. His numbers, and he won't mind me saying this, or he might not. His numbers aren't crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But you watch that guy on a bike, and he's smooth as silk. He doesn't waste any energy, and he's aero as anything. Like, and yeah, like there's guys that on a Zwift race can put out crazy numbers, but they can't do it in aero, and they can't run off the bike. So it's still 3 sports, and you've got to do it. It's got to be sustainable. And I've made this mistake, putting myself in a too aggressive aero position. Yeah, I can't push any power. Yeah, I look aero, and on Instagram, those pictures look amazing, but I'm awful, like absolutely awful. And that's why I guess I look back at some of my pictures from 2010 where I wasn't aero, but my seat wasn't too high, it wasn't too far forward, my bars, the drop wasn't too much. I could push out really good power, and I was comfortable, and I could do it all day. Whereas now, like the trend, I think we're coming out of it now. It was to just, okay, let's see how aggressive you can get. Like I think it's a mistake, and especially for an older athlete. I think I could get away with it when I was younger, but yeah, I can't anymore. My positions, it has to be a lot more relaxed these days. Yeah, or there's no getting out of T2.
Right.
I'll just sort of fall off my bike, and that'll be it.
So I know we have to wrap up soon, but we've had a couple of questions about where folks can cheer you on this year. Can you let us know a little bit about what you have planned?
Oh, can you find out from Ironman what races they're going to have?
Yeah.
I think St. George is the plan in a little under 3 weeks' time. Awesome. And then there's a few, like there's a race in Des Moines, Iowa that I'd be tempted to do. I'd love to qualify for World Champs back in St. George in September. That would be the goal. So, like Boulder, if Boulder happens, 70.3, I'd love to do that again. But yeah, Ironman distance, I just don't. I think 15 hours a week, you can do a 70.3. You can't get away with that in Ironman. Not in the professional. In the age group, you could get away with it, you could do it and put together a good race. Mm-hmm. But if I want to be competitive, I've at least got to be hitting a few weeks of like 24, 25 hours. I just don't have the time. Mm-hmm. So 70.3 for this year. And if that goes really well, I might do a late year Ironman if all goes well. So.
If there was one thing you could change about triathlon, what would you change?
The draft zone.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I just don't understand why I was still talking about it. Like, and the guys that have the biggest voice could make it happen. And I can name like Kinley. Why isn't he like? I'd say this to him when I see him at St. George. Like, why isn't he taking a stand? Because it would really. If he says I'm not racing ever again, and Sanders does the same thing, and a bunch of other guys that aren't amazing swimmers, like Sam Long, we're not racing anymore until you make it 20 meters. Maybe Ironman to change it. And like, don't change it for the age groupers. Don't like it. That's fine, whatever. But it does make a big difference. But I don't know. I feel like we'll still be talking about this in 40 years. Like, oh yeah, that draft zone.
Yeah, they're incrementally changing it, but not to the point that it makes a difference.
Yeah, it's a big advantage. Like Texas on the weekend, into a block headwind at 12 meters, which is 10 meters rear to front. That's a big advantage. Like I know Sanders wasn't happy. Like, he sat up and was protesting because he was dragging people around because he's sitting at 350 watts and they're someone same sort of size is pushing 310 watts at 10 meters. And yeah, so, but anyway, it probably won't change.
Yeah.
End of the day, the best athlete generally wins. It would be nice to have a fairer race like that. Yeah.
Great.
Well, Joe, this hour has flown past.
It does.
It's already it's already 7 p.m. your time, but you have some sourdough bread that I'm sure you're going to want to go tuck into.
Yes.
But I know I speak for Molly and for our viewers. Thank you so much for being willing to come on and chat with us for an hour. We know that this is, your time is valuable, and we really, really appreciate you coming and hanging out for your first time in detention.
Well, absolutely. No, you're very welcome. It was a pleasure. It's great to. I'd love to see you guys in person, but hopefully that will happen soon. But it's always nice to connect with the community. I do miss. I'm starting to get goosebumps about racing again in St. George. Like I got to race at Daytona last year, but there wasn't really a crowd, and it was a bit strange, to be honest, and it didn't feel quite right that we should be racing at this time. But they did a great job, and I felt completely safe. But yeah, it'd be nice to go back to some sort of like a big event like St. George and a community that really supports that event and get to race. Look, that field is going to be epic. It's going to be good to see where I stand on my 15 hours a week. I'm going to be like, I hope this challenge might come back and bite me, but I might not beat anyone.
I doubt that'll happen. If I know you, I'm sure there's a lot of people that will be having to go vegan the week after.
We'll see if they accept the challenge. It'd be good.
You need a T-shirt that's like people. Joe Gambles made me vegan.
Yes,
that'd be awesome. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. Come on back Thursday morning to ride with us on Zwift. Not Sufferfest on Thursdays, sadly. And then come on back here next Tuesday for our Sufferfest workout. And then Rach McBride next Tuesday evening back here in detention. So until all those things happen, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And here's to a happier, faster, and healthier tomorrow.
Bye, guys.